Hi, folks. You're Tacitus today. Your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the claim, the assertion, the propaganda that anti-Semitism by straight white male Christians, anti-Semitism, and indeed Islamophobia. These are the big issues. These are the big moral issues of our time. In both cases, it's the culprits spreading this hatred are supposedly all straight white male Christians. Some women too, but white women. But effectively, it's a straight white male thing. And the word anti-Semitism, or the phrase anti-Semitism, is immediately associated with Nazi fascist Hitler swastika. So the symbolism sort of combines really into one sort of shorthand narrative there. Now, it's claimed that anti-Semitism is at some sort of fever pitch, and as indeed is Islamophobia. Now, whenever there's an act by militant Islam, it's quickly jumped on. So, one or two militants there, but all the other people from Islam are wonderful people. And if you have any objection to Islam or any part of it, or any people from it, then you're an Islamophobe, which means, again, by the way, that you're Hitler. So Hitler gets a run, so no matter which direction you go in here. Now, are these things at fever pitch? Are the mainstream media and the political class, they couldn't be more pro-Israel and the Semites, if you like. So total 100% support from those quarters. There's a vast army of NGOs that are super pro Israel and the Jewish diaspora, so there's no anti-Semitism coming from that quarter. So where is this anti-Semitism that's supposed to be an absolute fever? Now, every Jewish activist or Jewish organization will say that anti-Semitism is out of control. I mean, it's everywhere. Jewish people are afraid and they're in danger. Now, the recent events at Bondi Beach in Sydney, Australia, would suggest that, well, there's definitely an issue here. But is the issue anything to do with straight white males? But the instant reflexive go-to is it's the far right, it's those fucking Nazi Hitlers. But clearly it's not. So why they jump all over that one is just to stay consistent with the globalist mass migration narrative, rather than dealing with the actual issues. It similarly appears in the case of the Bondi Beach shooting in Australia that one or both of the shooters were radical activists or were on a watch list by the security services and the intelligence services on a watch list for radical activism, but somehow they were able to go overseas for weapons training and were able to acquire a number of guns while also being on a danger watch list. I like to see someone square that away. Nonetheless, is in fact anti-Semitism at fever. The only place where you can really find the anti-Semitism that supposedly is omnipresent, exists everywhere, is on the online chat forums and things like that. That's about the only place, and the people that, if you like, have even a neutral view, let alone a negative view of the Jewish diaspora more widely. And bear in mind there are devout and activist Jews, and then Jews that are Christians, or Jews that are just not politically or active in any sort of religious or devotion sense of piety or anything like that. So nonetheless, I've noticed, and it's clear online, that Christian organisations, for some reason, are allowing themselves to be invited into supposed talk shows where Jewish activists say, "So what are you doing about anti-Semitism?" And as if they're somehow accountable for it, as if the only source of anti-Semitism, again, is white Christians, which it isn't. So I can't let the Hitler thing go. Obviously, that's the propaganda value. That's just too great. But the guilting value and that sort of thing. But no one's prepared to deal with the real issue. And I guess there's a bit of a conundrum here. The Jewish sort of ideological fanatical diaspora believes that by breaking apart all homogeneity in white Christian countries, that then Jews are protected forever, that another Hitler cannot appear if that homogeneity and Christianity is destroyed. I think that's a terrible path to go down, which will only lead to terrible Jewish ruin, is my view. So I think that's one of the most misguided approaches to things that are, geopolitics, whatever you want to call it, that I've ever seen. But they're pursuing that with. In order to break that homogeneity, then they have to bring in a lot of Islamic people into the West, or facilitate it or encourage it. And a lot of Jewish NGOs are part of that. But then on the backhand, they get the Islamic groups forming, ghettos and enclaves and this sort of thing, and demanding, Sharia law and, Allah's word is the one and only, all this sort of stuff, which will come through the back door and take the Jews by surprise. And then the Jews want to resort, the Jewish activists want to resort, well, we want law and order, we want the rule of law. Hey, you've got to keep them under control. But at the same time, we have to pretend that it's all fascist white Hitler Nazis that are the problem. So this is creating an impossible dilemma for the Jewish propaganda machine, and they can't go both ways. And as the struggle they're having with Gaza and the optics and the politics and the narrative around that, you can see how, the terrible struggle they're having, combining and keeping these two things. That the only problem is the white Nazis. We have to stop the white Nazis now and in the future. Remember, another Hitler is only just around the corner. And at the same time, break the homogeneity of the white countries by importing lots of Islamic peasants, which in turn then attack the Jewish diaspora. So again, how they square all that, or how they're going to, and already I would say they can't square it all away. It just isn't going to work, isn't going to happen. But anyway, is according to our political class and our media class, anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, these are the big moral issues of our time, and it's done by all those fucking evil white fucking Christian fucking Nazis. The fucking fascists are everywhere. Oh shit, there goes Hitler just running past the door. Hey, I've come back, I just want to have a word with you. Oh. So let's just put this in some perspective then. So I did what is the biggest, sneering, smearing, derision, amount of derision that's out in the media and online. Now, if we look at the political class and mass media controlled globalist narrative class, the denunciation of white people by accusing of things they haven't done and don't do, and the denunciation of white people is just anti, and I call it anti-Whiteism, which is what it is. That is by far and away the greater one, the use of the word Nazi, fascist, white supremacist, and so on and so forth. Neo-Nazi, the list just goes on. Now, that category, and you can do media, you can do searches on the media for that, and there's quite a lot of programs out there that allow you to put in those search terms and those phrases and words, and just say, well, how many are, over the last 30 days, for example, last 30 days, just how many times did the word Nazi come? And word Nazi as in a put down, neo-Nazis everywhere, and this and fascist that, and swastika, and so on. And that is 10 times, not 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 10 times greater than both the anti-Semitic comments and the Islamophobic comments combined, 10 times greater. And constant. It's just a constant, obviously coordinated narrative. Whereas the narrative against, and if you can, it's not even a narrative, it's quite ad hoc, but any comments about Jewish people or the Jewish diaspora or the Islamic populations coming into the West, it's a very different sort of denunciation. It doesn't have the same malevolence and bitter, twisted, perverted hatred that is used against white people. So it's very different. So whether or not you even categorize it as Islamic folk, for example, if somebody posts online, third world Islamic peasants are incompatible with Western culture. Is that Islamophobia? I wouldn't call it Islamophobia. I would say it's an observation, maybe a misguided one, maybe an accurate one, but is it expressing hatred or anything? I wouldn't classify that as them. Quite different from and white people gather with swastikas, Nazis worshipping Hitler. There's a serious malevolence against white people. And ideological fanaticism, malevolence against white people that you're not seeing. I don't see. I mean, I'm sure you could find a comment somewhere, but I don't see that against the Jews or against the Jewish diaspora, or against the wider Islamic, or if you like, the Arabic Islamic diaspora. So it's quite different. So just saying, well, I don't think we should fund Israel's wars in the Middle East. Is that anti-Semitic? I wouldn't classify that as anti-Semitic. Or we should stop funding. This is the United States. Yeah, we should stop funding Israel and put America first. I wouldn't call that anti-Semitic. The Islamic, the Islamic people, we shouldn't allow them to form enclaves. Sharia law should not be applied here. First and second generation Arabic Islamic people shouldn't be permitted to hold public office in America. If they do want to hold public office, they have to swear on the Christian Bible. Would you call that Islamophobia? I wouldn't call that Islamophobic. Now, when the Jewish people assume there's all white people are Nazis and there's another Hitler around the corner, I would classify it as anti-Whiteism, anti-Christian. When the Islamic folks say that, which they do through their various websites and amongst each other, say that Christians are evil dogs and we're going to take over, and their population is declining, so they need good Arabic boys to fuck the white women to get more kids. And all. I would classify as anti-Whiteism. So there's quite a difference in the delivery and the wording, and again the viciousness and malevolence of the. But if I then control for that to look at malevolence, as in have malevolence as a controlling factor, then the difference is quite stark. So there are 40 anti-white, as in malevolent anti-white comments, versus one anti-Jewish so I'm combining the anti-Islamic, anti-Islamic, anti-Semitic comments for a malevolence factor, and then it turns into 40 to 1. So we're looking at a very different scenario here. So I would reject out of hand this idea that we've got firstly, there is an anti-Semitic issue here and an anti-Islamophobic issue rather. And I would say the real issue we're dealing with here is a concerted, coordinated, well-funded, deliberate, all-out attack on white people. And it's done, of course, because white people are the main obstacle to the globalist project. It's only being done because of that. So that's the reason that they're being called Nazis at every drop of the hat. So I think that's something we really need to deal with. So when you see things like in the United States, there's going to be an anti-Semitism czar and Islamophobia czar, all this sort of bullshit. Where is the controlling factor here for anti-Whiteism? Because the way it's going, not only in the United States but in Australia and the Western world generally, is it's almost at the point now where anyone that goes and kills a white person will be congratulated by the state, if not rewarded for it. I think we're almost at that point now where white people have been denigrated so consistently for 35 plus years, and that white people are totally evil, historically evil, currently evil, always evil, Hitler evil, and all that Nazi fascist, that they cease to become humans. They're just objects to be removed and got out the way. And I think we're almost at that stage. We're seeing signs of it already. So why is not something being done about that? Because it certainly needs to. You've been with Tacitus today, your pushback channel. Thank you for listening.